Hi, everybody. Welcome to Queers and Soaps. I'm Tommy, and I'm once again joined by my lovely co host, Angel.
Hi.
Today, we are back covering Port Charles' Tainted Love, Week 8. So I'll roll the credits and we will jump right into it. So we open with Kevin wants to report Livy to the police, but she hasn't been missing long enough. But they know that Caleb is the one responsible for her being missing, so they're kind of freaking out because they think he's dangerous. Um, Livy wakes up in a white dress in what looks like a resort, but I guess it's a mansion. It almost looks like a tropical resort, doesn't it?
Yeah, it kind of did. Yeah, with all the curtains hanging off
I
and
was getting like White Lotus vibes, or
yeah.
and it's daytime. It sounds like there's a beach or some kind of ocean outside. I
Mhm.
don't know where he took her. Transylvania, maybe.
Probably around the corner for all we know. Soaps.
And at first, it looks like she's alone, but then we kind of see lurking like he does in the background, Caleb.
Mhm.
Admiring her, we'll say. um, Jack is locked up in a cage by Chris and is electrocuted when he tries to escape.
Electric shock. Electrocuted would have killed him.
Okay, so he's like zapped.
Yes.
It's like a
He's like
shot collar.
I learned that in sixth grade, so that's why I'm like, hey, I have to correct people because I got corrected. So
No, that's good.
just pass it on from generation to generation.
um, Gabby is upset that her brother Emilio is hurt and in the hospital.
Mm.
Um, and she kind of throws herself at Jamal, and Allison's like, "All right, bitch, back off." He's like, "Enough."
The way she looked at her, like she was like,
She's like, "That's enough. That's enough."
"That's enough. That's enough." Especially since it's even more gross once we find out what happens later.
Well, thank God nothing actually happened.
Yeah, right.
um, Caleb talks to Livy about their destiny, and she doesn't know if she should stay. And he asks her to give him a week, and then she can decide. Gabby doesn't
It's
understand how
1 week, so it's 1 week for them, but in 365 days, it's a whole year. So,
right.
Caleb moves quick. He's not like Massimo.
Yeah. um, Gabby doesn't understand how she could bite her own brother when Caleb said vampires can't like hurt their own family.
Hmm. Well, bite because remember, many times Jack has harmed Chris doing this.
Oh,
So,
choking him, yeah.
yeah.
um, Kevin and Lucy go to Jack's room, and Lucy finds empty blood bags near the mini fridge, and she says Jack must be one of them. Jamal and Allison walk in, and Kevin accuses them of knowing all along. Chris electrocutes Jack until he passes out, and Chris hesitantly opens the cage to check Jack's pulse, and he doesn't have one. And Jack's eyes pop open.
Boom. He's like, boom.
So the second episode, I guess it got cut off in the beginning because we didn't
Mhm.
get like the first part or the opening credits. So we must have picked up right after the opening credits. Um, but we had Jamal and Allison basically admitting everything that happened, from the bike accident to burying Jack, thinking maybe they
Mhm.
buried him alive, to his weirdness, to his super strength.
And
um,
then if you watch like the before like the next on Port Charles, I think Kevin threatens Jamal into admitting that.
okay.
So that's the implication there. The implication because we didn't see it, so we only
Yeah.
saw and like Kevin was like, "You better tell me where
Yeah,
did Jack?"
usually those next on Port Charles are the first scenes of the next episode.
Yeah,
They don't really go too deep into the episode.
yeah.
um so yeah, so we didn't really miss too much with that. Um Caleb is still trying to convince Livy to stay.
Hmm.
and he keeps telling her how happy they'll be together, and she's kinda conflicted because, again, she still cares about Jack, but she has this pull to Caleb, and, she's also concerned about missing her family and not, like,
Yeah.
seeing her friends, and he's he's just kinda like, "Don't worry about them."
No, don't worry about
He
them.
says it in a more convincing, like, seducing way. Um, so Gabby is trying to figure out from her brother Emilio how she was able to bite him, and she's keep
Mhm,
asking him, and he kind of freaks out, and they have to, like, put him in a padded room and have him restrained, almost like the judge was that died,
mhm,
and she slips in there, and she basically I don't know if she, like, compelled him to wake up because she was, like, very aggressive, and then his eyes popped open,
mhm.
and she basically, like, makes him admit that she was adopted and that there were so many brothers and all they wanted was a girl, and so they adopted her.
Mhm.
Um, I know I'm probably jumping ahead, but this was the quickest find out what adoption agency worked with you, like,
Yes,
situation.
right.
On the phone next episode, she was ready to meet up with, like, I was like, this feels like it would've took, like, a month and, like, an hour-long, like, soap opera time.
Yeah, it would've just dragged on a little bit
It was
longer.
literally next day, she was on the phone. Jamal and Allison were, like, knocking on the door, and she was like, "What?" And she, like, slams the door in their face. Um, while Caleb is, like, trying to convince Livy to stay, and he asks her what she wants most in this world, and does she say, or does he kinda, like, read her mind?
I don't remember her saying that she wanted, well, her mom,
Yeah.
um, but I don't but I could have also missed that too.
Yeah, I didn't remember her actually saying her mom, but it was, like, conveyed on her face,
Mhm.
and we got this amazing reveal, which I was completely shocked. I didn't remember this at all, but we got Kimberlin Brown back as Rita.
Kimberlyn! They misspelled her name in the credits. It's Kimberlin, and they spelled it with a Y, and I'm like, "That's not right."
Was it in both credits they spelt it wrong?
In the, in the end credits.
Yeah, was it in, like, did you see both, like, Tuesday and Wednesday? Because she was in 2 episodes.
No, 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 so what is it? The, acting credits only run Mondays, so,
Oh, okay.
yeah, so, that's how I was able to find out that they credit Michael Easton twice as Caleb and Michael instead of Michael Easton as Caleb and Michael, it's Michael Easton as Caleb, Michael Easton as Michael. But they spelled her name wrong and then they credited Emilio twice.
They credited Kimberlin on Monday, and she didn't appear until the end of Tuesday. Talk
Well, no,
about, like
they credit everybody in the beginning of the week.
yeah,
And
but
then
talk about revealing us,
but then
like,
everything else is just like every other day is just like
producers.
producers and crew. Friday is crew and then Monday is cast.
Yeah, but, like, that means that they would have spoiled that she was
Yeah,
coming
they
on.
spoiled it.
I mean, if
Which is why you should skip the closing credits, like you always do.
So I
So I
was
knew she
completely
was coming. I
shocked.
just didn't know when she was coming.
You remembered this?
So I knew that in the from the Monday credits, but I also remember some of it, especially the ending. Like, well, I'm not going to mention the ending right just yet, but I remember this specific episode. I do remember this specific episode that I from first airing. Because remember, it was the summer and I was a teenager and I had nothing to do. So, of course, we're going to be watching Port Charles in the summer.
Right.
So, yeah, I do remember this episode. I think was it kind of a big deal that she was coming back? I don't know.
Did you think that she was, like, back full time?
You
Like,
know what? I could have read in the soap opera magazines that she was only back briefly.
oh, that's such a good reveal, though. It's like, why would they do that?
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah,
they still got me 22 years later.
yeah. That's why you should
I
skip
like
the
that. I
credits.
like being able to be
But I
shocked.
like, remember I like watching the credits just to see if Albert Alarm did it.
Uh,
So we get to see what the shot was.
I love the screen cap you posted of, like, Jack's, like, showing his teeth. So, although I was shocked and surprised that she made an appearance, at some point I kind of felt like this wasn't real. Um, so this is my theory, and I don't know if I'm correct, and maybe you don't know either, because I don't know. They feel like they're playing a little fast and loose with this. Is it like an astral body situation where like it is happening, but it's like she's removed from her body?
Astral projection. Yeah, that would make sense.
Because they have this whole conversation. Rachel says that they're going to be happy together, all three of them, her, Livy, and Caleb. Like, forget everybody else. She feels her in that like the grandmother has a boyfriend now.
I remember
um,
that.
and she says she'll be back real soon. And then we kind of see at the end of the episode that she never left her hospital bed. She's still kind of comatose. Her eyes are open and she's blinking. And that kind of made me think,
I think she has locked in syndrome.
was she there? Like, was it an actual body thing? And it, like, even though she's not moving and like, it's like in her head, like she saw it, she saw Livy. I couldn't really tell because it was a lot of she was comatose, so there wasn't
Or
really a
maybe
lot
it's
of
something that
acting.
yeah, maybe it's something maybe it's an actual thing that Caleb did.
Maybe.
Yeah. But I also think she has locked in syndrome, which is something that another show Hollyoaks did with another character. So I think the intention was, oh, we'll put her in locked in syndrome, which means that she's she's not able to move. Like
Right.
she's not comatose, but she's like
Like we had the nurse saying, poor thing, you haven't
mhm,
had visitors or had any kind of progress since you've been put in here. And she's just kind of laying there and she's blinking. And the blinking is what made me think maybe she was aware of what happened.
mhm.
I wasn't sure what they were trying to do there.
Yeah, and this is really sad too, because it's like
She's alone.
she's just so alone and everything like that. Like nobody's came to visit her. I don't think Livy's even visited her.
Yeah. So at some point midway through the conversation with Livy, I kind of felt like this was the situation that she wasn't really there.
Mhm.
Um, but the initial reveal shocked me, and I like that. I like when
Mhm.
a soap opera can still like not do like the soap tropes of like, who's the daddy or like doppelgangers. And like
Mhm.
especially this being an older show, I was still like, oh, okay, this is fun. And then I thought about it. I feel like she went back to Bold in like 2002. So this must have been in
Yeah,
between.
that would have been when Sugar her like assisted in the militia and everything like that.
Yeah, that's what I
I
thought of. I was like, I feel like the militia happened in 2002.
think that was when it happened. She ran the militia and killed Ridge. So in case you're listening to this, I put up two quote fingers so that way to indicate that Ridge did indeed die. But if
Right.
you're watching Bold and Beautiful today, you know that he's not dead. So.
So I guess we can go back to Chris and Jack and Lucy and Kevin.
Mhm.
So Chris has taken a vacation so that he can continue to like experiment on Jack. He gets him, I guess the shock from the electric from the bars in the cage prompted his teeth to be shown.
Mhm.
Um there is a struggle. Oh, I forgot to mention because we talked about it a few minutes ago. Jack's eyes popped open, so he was actually fighting with Chris in the cage,
Yep.
and Chris managed to get away, locked him up. Jack's now weak because he's hungry, but he couldn't feed on Chris because that's his brother, and that's when we saw his teeth, I think.
Yeah.
So Chris then goes to take a vacation, and he gets a blood bag to, I guess, test it out. He only gives him one because he doesn't want him to be too strong
Mhm.
so he could get out. Um,
Well, he gives him like a vial.
a vial, right?
Like I think he like keeps refilling the vial because
Hmm.
like there's like a little thing that he puts the vial in,
Yeah,
little like thing that opens up in the cage and it puts the vial in, and then Jack takes the vial and then puts it in the thing, and then Chris takes it back. So he keeps
yeah.
refilling this vial, which doesn't seem to be very sanitary, but my character's so
I mean,
proper.
He's drinking blood, so I guess it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Um, so we kind of talked about this. Allison and Jamal go to Gabby's apartment, and at this
Mhm,
point, she was like on waiting for a phone call back from the adoption agency. She's like two through with them. They keep knocking on her door.
mhm.
They I laughed at this because they mention Caleb and that he's like obsessed with Livy, and she tries not to react at the mention of Caleb's name because she's obsessed with Caleb.
Uh-huh.
And when he's like in love with Livy, she's just like, no, he's not. He's in love with me. It's almost like but she's like, who would be in love with that bony bitch anyway? And she kind of like is like, Allison, you better get out of my face. And Allison's done with like doors being slammed in her face, and
Mhm,
she steps to Gabby, and then when Jamal steps in, she gets a little she shows her vampire strength, and she kind of like
mhm.
twists Jamal's arm behind his back.
Twists his
and
arm
holds
around behind his back like this.
it, right. She still hasn't figured out why she can't bite Jamal, but I was actually surprised we found out this week.
Mhm.
This is Allison like, I'm done with you. um what else happened? Oh, so because of her vampire strength, Jamal doesn't think that they should continue to bother her, and
Mhm,
he ends up telling Allison, or Spunky as he calls her, that she has all the same symptoms that Jack had,
mhm.
and he thinks that she's a vampire.
Yep.
So they hide out and they follow her to the adoption agency. And Allison has like this extreme theory that she's trying to adopt babies that nobody knows about so she could like feed on them. He's like, that's a little ridiculous. She's like, we're talking about vampires. She's like, and that's ridiculous.
I also thought, and this is just something that I noticed. It was a nice touch when like they were like kind of creeping a little bit. Well, not creeping, like just kind of spying on Gabriella, and Allison's wearing flats, and like you could just tell that like the flats wouldn't stay on, so you could see like her heels and the flats are down on the ground, and I'm like, oh, I remember this from wearing flats.
um, so now that Livy's seen her mom, she's all in. She's like, yes, I'll stay forever. This is great. Um, Kevin and Lucy figure out where Jack might be being held
Hmm.
because Lucy starts to have flashes of when Rachel kidnapped her.
Yeah.
Pre-arcs. I remember watching this
Hmm.
pre-arcs and was like going to inject her, I think, with like medicine, I guess, to kill her. Um,
I think it was the killer.
because
It
I
was
remember
something.
her being tied up.
Yeah. Oh
um,
wait. I think it was the medication that caused her quote unquote locked in syndrome. So
oh,
I think the needle wound up getting like
stuck into
injected
her.
in Rachel, and that's what caused
Gotcha.
her quote unquote locked in syndrome. So I'm calling it now quote unquote locked in syndrome because it's just the effect of the medication that
Right.
she was yeah.
Hmm. So Chris had left to go get more blood or run more tests. I don't know what, but when he came back, Jack was not in the cage, and so now
Hmm.
Jack has the upper hand. He has him by the throat, and Kevin and Lucy walk in or barge in, and they kind of break them up. Jack wants to go find Livy, um, and Caleb convinces Livy to call Kevin to tell him that she's okay and that she's safe. So she does that,
Hmm.
which is where I get confused because I don't know where he has her. And then again, I have this whole astral body thing with Rachel theory.
Hmm.
Um, we'll put a pin in it because there's something
Yeah.
that happens at the end that we'll have to go back to this. Um, so she must have a break in Caleb's, like, compulsion or something because then she says, "Is Jack there?" Put Jack on the phone, and that's when Caleb's like, "Oh, no, no, no," and he takes
No,
the
no, no,
phone.
no, we're not doing
And
that
he's just like,
today.
"Don't worry, I'm gonna take good care of her." Click. Um, so we have Lucy and Kevin back at the lighthouse with her crime board that has, like, Caleb and, like, the stranger card and the baby card.
Bring our
Um,
pumpkin head and I go to the woods. I like
and
that she just has it written out as Pumpkinhead, not Serena.
that's Serena, right? And Ian and Eve show up, and they talk about how, Emilio is exhibiting the same signs that, Jack did, and the judge did. So this is where they flat out tell them that Caleb is a vampire,
Mhm,
um, because Eve notices the picture of Caleb on the board, and she explains that that's Michael's brother, and they're like, "Oh my god," so now they think, like, maybe Michael could be evil. Um, Ian and Eve are kinda having trouble with this, but Lucy explains about, like, how the tarot cards kept showing up and the stranger, and every time she got the stranger card, she met Caleb once, and then she got the baby boy card, and she's like, "So that's why I freaked out when I found out you were having a baby boy." Um, Eve mentions that Caleb came to see her at the apartment once, and that
mhm.
nothing happened, and they asked her if she invited him in, and she said no. And then Eve remember last time I was like, "She should just, like, hide the chain in her bra?"
Yeah.
She magically just, like, pulls the chain out, and Ian's like, "I threw that away." She's like, "Yeah, but I took it."
Yeah, I took it.
And I'm glad that wasn't, like, a big thing. She was like, "Yeah, I know, but I took it out." But they never mention like, they don't go further with that, like, to say they stop at, "You didn't invite him in, that's good, that's why you were safe." She was also safe because she was wearing that
She's
necklace.
wearing a necklace because of the
Like, they
crest.
didn't take it one step forward to, like, explain that,
Mhm. I'm
but
sure they will later.
yeah. Um, so Jack is now on his own looking for Livy, and I guess he goes by the water, their spot that they always meet at. She's not
Mhm.
there, he's screaming for her. And then I guess it was the basement of the church, right, that he was at looking for
Yeah, it
things?
was the basement of the church.
And he finds a portrait of original Olivia, who I don't know if it was just, like, the graininess of the picture or the darkness. I felt like didn't really resemble our Livy too much, like
Yeah, I don't think it did.
but he wipes the bottom and sees that her name was also Olivia.
Mhm.
Um, and then he heard a noise, and I thought maybe it was Michael,
Yes, I thought too.
but there was nobody there, and there was another room with more stuff in it.
Uh-huh.
Um, but we'll put a pin in that for now. Um, at the adoption agency, Gabby gets her results right away that she is not related to Milo. She was adopted. And Jamal goes off on his own to, I guess, confront her or get closer. And they kind of have a face to face confrontation. And he admits that he knows what she is. And that, did he have a stake? I'm trying to remember. He
Oh,
said
no.
something. I think he had a stake, and he's like he was gonna kill her or whatever. And she's like, "Well, then you'll be killing your sister."
Oh, yeah, he did. Yep, he did.
And that's when I was like, "Oh shit, we just found out."
Yeah.
So I'm guessing the paperwork had her biological mother's name on it,
Mhm.
which I guess she knows is Jamal's biological mother.
Yeah.
Do we know this character?
Nope.
We don't.
Nope. The only like I said before, the only like connection that he has is with Dara Jensen, who we've met before on the
Hmm.
show. And that's it.
Okay. And we don't know any of her family.
Nope, not really.
Okay. So that was their little cliffhanger, is that they're brother and sister. Um, so now I can take the pins out. So Jack is now in the other room, and he comes upon I guess, a covered up coffin.
Mhm.
Um, and this is where I get confused, and I have to kind of go back. So with my whole, it looks, he says, "Oh my God, Livy," and that's in the coffin.
Mhm.
Now, if we're going off of my astral body thing, is if that's Livy, is that where she is with Caleb right now, her astral body? Just like Rachel was like, could have been her astral body.
Or maybe it's Olivia.
And yes, so again, going off of, I didn't think that Olivia really looked like our Livy in the portrait.
Mhm.
That whoever was in that coffin didn't look like our Livy, and I'm thinking, is that a taxidermied original Olivia? But he said Livy, and I'm like, oh, then I'm going off his word. It must be her. But I'm like, but it could be taxidermied original recipe, Olivia.
Yeah, and I was like, "Ooh," and then I was about to ask you, "Can we do another episode?" Just to see. I want to
Just
know, but I'm like, nah, I'm not gonna do that.
So, do you know? Or
I
you're
don't.
just like,
That's why I
okay.
wanted to ask you to do another episode. And
Well,
then the previews didn't really give you much answers,
no, they didn't.
so
Um, Side note, it had nothing to do with the week's episodes really, but I was just really relieved that Michael lived another week.
yes,
I'm like, all right, we're 8 weeks
I
in.
was
We're eight
waiting
weeks
for him
in.
this week actually.
Yeah, right. He was credited, right, as Michael,
Mhm.
but
As
he
Michael, yep.
didn't. um. Oh, also, big reveal for Olivia, for Livy, anyway. Um. So she's walking through the mansion. She's decided she's gonna stay because she saw her mom, and now she's happy. And
Mhm.
so now she wants to know all about Caleb. And she's walking through the mansion, and there's like these white sheets flowing, and I'm like, I see candles, and I'm like, with the white sheets flowing and the candles, that seems like a fire hazard, but okay.
Yeah,
Um,
look,
he
I'm gonna present the biggest burn ever. If these episodes were directed by Albert or Laura, I'd be worried about that, but since they weren't, I'm fine.
so he appears to her on and off. He keeps like popping in and out, and he eventually shows his teeth. He's like, I'm gonna show you who I really am. He shows his teeth, and at first she's a little scared,
Mhm.
but then she kind of touches the tip of his fang. And he's like arm length apart, like he's holding
Mhm.
her by her neck, and she kind of like tilts her head to like show her neck. And then when they do like what do they call, a long shot of them to show their whole like bodies, he's so far away, and he's just like slow motion like going like this. I'm like,
Uh-huh.
that doesn't, I'm like, that looks weird. Like you're like this, and you're just like um so I don't remember if he actually bites her and she becomes a vampire until like the spells are broken or whatever. I don't remember that part. If that like makes her
I know
more
next
attached to
I know
him
next
because
week
she's
there's an implication, like in the previews next week for next week, there's an implication that she wants him to bite her.
okay.
So I don't know, but I don't know if it happens or not.
Okay. Yeah, I don't remember either.
Yeah.
I guess it could happen and it would be fine once everything gets resolved at some point. Because, like I said, I got like a few weeks ago, I got a suggested video and it had Ian with fangs. I'm like, when the fuck does that happen?
Right.
Because I know it didn't happen in Tainted Love.
Look, I know Charles Keaton appears somewhere in this, so
That's gonna creep me out. That man creeps me out.
yeah.
um, I guess that was it as far as the cliffhangers, right? He was a
Yeah, and then
vampire.
like one last thing, I know that like especially the episodes directed by Andrew Lee, they do a lot with like camera movement and stuff like that. Like I mentioned this before, but there was like one scene where it's like Caleb and Olivia above and they're kissing and the camera just spins around and stuff like that.
Okay.
I like that. I don't know why. And then also, I noticed the music has changed to like this creepy, supernaturalistic music. The music has changed. It's not the music that it was. Like if you were to watch Poor Charles from the, I'll say the first daytime episode, the music's so different from what
Mhm.
it is now. It's so I like it now. I mean, not that I didn't like the old music, the old soundtrack, but I like it now. And I think this might be RC Kate, who I follow on Twitter. So if you're listening to this, RC, good job, because I like he now does Young and the Restless, the background music for that.
Well, now pretty much everybody knows about vampires except for
Mhm.
maybe Karen and Frank.
Yeah,
So
but
maybe
it
that's
wouldn't.
why. Maybe we're just like, okay, now we are full on supernatural, so we got new soundtrack and like
Mhm. But it wouldn't they wouldn't but they already been in a supernatural element of the show, so there it wouldn't surprise them, like, "Oh, yeah, I time traveled." Like
when I was watching Lucy and Kevin explain to Ian and Eve and just how like serious it was, even though it's silly because it's supernatural. Um, they really committed to it, and it made me think about Passions and how over the top and just like
Mhm.
I've said this before. I feel like Passions was almost like a parody of a soap opera. Like they were just over the top for over the top sake.
Mhm.
But this I like because they were taking it serious, like it was real, and like they were committing to it. And it wasn't silly hijinks like orangutan nurses and like
Uh-huh.
talking dolls, although they probably could do that since now it's supernatural. But like, um, yeah, I like how even though Passions was around, it, this was different.
Yeah,
It took itself more
it's
serious.
it's serious. I was talking with a friend of mine, uh, he mentions that not Passions, Poor Charles is a little bit more character driven when it comes to
Mhm.
supernatural elements too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Passions could get lost in the plot.
They get lost in the plot. They
Yeah,
take several years for a movement to happen, whereas Poor Charles is like boom, 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 boom.
yeah. But that was James Riley also. So
Yeah, you would think with James, you would think. Oh no, wait, no, he did Possession, and Possession lasted like a year, I think. So
yeah,
yeah, so the whole Possession arc lasted a year. So
I laugh because he was like, "Oh, I made Marlene levitate." Pilot episode of Passions, he had Grace
Grace
levitating.
Levitate.
He's like, "Oh, you like levitating? I'm gonna make him
Like,
levitate."
I'll make Grace Levitate. We got you. But it
um,
was different. It was like the angel girl made her levitate. So
yeah,
it wasn't like it was the opposite of like the reason Marlena levitated.
yeah, true. It was totally, completely opposite. Um, was there anything important I missed?
No, it was a good week.
It was. Now that we're in the set that we're at, the resort, we'll call it, that Livy
The
and Caleb are
resort.
at, I feel like maybe next week might be the wedding dress week because I remember her being in that set in a wedding dress.
Hmm.
So that's quick. We're
Yeah,
going
yeah,
from I don't know if I want to stay a week to let's get married.
I've seen it kind of pop up. You know how like when on YouTube when you have like a still of like what's in the video.
Uh-huh.
If they don't put the title card on there, uh, like one of the stills is her in a wedding dress. And I feel like it's coming up very quickly,
Maybe it
very
was the
soon.
promo because sometimes the promos are at the beginning of the episode, so maybe
Yeah.
that thumbnail is from the promo.
Hmm.
I guess we'll see. I'm excited. Everything's like
Yeah, me too.
I watched it twice actually. Because the first time I watched it, I was kind of like dozing in and out, and I was like, I'm glad I rewatched it because I totally didn't see the whole "I'm your sister" reveal, and I'm like, well, it's a good
Hmm.
thing I rewatched it. That's important. But do you have anything else to add before I wrap this up?
Not at all.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us for Poor Charles Tainted Love week 8. We will be back in a couple of weeks for week 9. As always, you can find us on all the socials at Queers and Soaps. And until next time, have a great day. Bye.
Bye.